His rage and control was built upon his childhood, which he had a good childhood, but he was given up for adoption. If we begin with David's background, his mother's name was Betty and his father's name was Tony. So Betty and Tony get together and they actually run a fish market. And at this fish market, they're doing fish things. And they end up kind of going their separate ways. So Tony starts to decide to leave, and I think he begins to get interest in someone else. But at the same time, Betty is starting to get interest with another man as well. So she runs off and has an affair. And with all of this happening, with her cheating on her husband, they decide to separate and get a divorce. This man that she ended up having the affair with was named Joseph, and Joseph did not want her to actually go through and have this baby. Yes, she got pregnant by Joseph, this man, while she was still married to Tony. We're not sure if it was Tony that was the dad or if it was Joseph, but nevertheless, David was not a wanted baby by any means. So Betty just decided that it was best that they put the baby up for adoption. Having said that, because things were kind of rocky and Joseph was threatening her, she decided to give the baby David the last name Santos, which was Tony's last name. So it was said that it was because she didn't want people to know that she was a cheater and had gotten impregnated by a man who was not her spouse. So there's that. I mean, it doesn't work that way these days. It doesn't really freaking matter, but back then that was a thing. Last names, all that crap. So it's raining pretty heavily outside. I don't know if you can hear it, but I sure can in my headphones, as well as my loud roommate, but hopefully it's not too annoying. I've had to stop numerous times because of how far this man's voice carries. He's very, very loud. This baby, David, he was not wanted by his real parents, either Joseph or Tony, and Betty, the mother. So he was placed up for adoption, like I was saying, and was adopted very quickly as an infant by Pearl, and dad's name was Nathan Berkowitz. So it was Pearl and Nathan Berkowitz. They were a lovely couple, very, very super loving to the young boy. They are the only parents that he really knew, and they actually treated him like he was their own. She meaning Pearl, she had a very hard time conceiving. So after a while, they just decided, we're gonna go ahead and adopt. So they took care of David, and it was said by neighbors and things that growing up in his young adolescence, he was quite rude, spoiled, and just not that great to be around. He was very, very smart. So kind of one of those children you'd see that was just really bored in class because they were just too smart for the teacher, too smart for the lesson plan, too smart, too cool for school, like literally. And because of this, he was super lonely, and because he was a loner, none of the kids really liked him, and that kind of sucked for him. He didn't. I try to see the good things about it, but because he did have a good childhood, but in a way he was too smart and he just was a loner. So this kind of rage grew in him, and he ended up really just not getting along with his dad, because later on when he was 14, his adopted mother put to him, his mother, Pearl, passed away from cancer. So he was very, very mad. He was pissed. He was angry. I mean, he was 14. His mom died. They were very, very close. They actually didn't get along, the adoptive father and him, after that, because he moved on. He got married. He met another woman. This woman and David did not get along because of course, the tension in the house was rising. The thing with David is that he really, really did not like this woman, and it wouldn't have mattered, I don't believe, any woman because he didn't understand how someone could move on from the love of their life. He kind of thought, how could you, Dad? How could you do this? How could you remarry? You love her. You don't love her. You're remarrying someone, So he was very rude, very disrespectful, very, very, just wanted to just get out of there. He didn't want to be a part of this family anymore. So, of course, he took off. At the age of 17, he enlisted in the military. That's the only way he really could get away from everybody. So, that's the only thing he could do. So, he signed up for the Army. He ended up going to Norfolk, Virginia. I can't remember it. But after that, he went over to, I believe, South Korea, not North, South Korea. And he ended up getting discharged 3 years into his, Army life. What do you call it? Time, reserve time. I don't remember what it's called. I have so many military families, I can't remember. That's so annoying. I can't remember something so simple. But anyway, he only did 3 years and was honorably discharged. So it wasn't like there was some kind of crazy incident where he was caught drunk or doing something nuts. I'm sure he did do things that were crazy, but he ended up getting out of the Army. And when he came home, he was kind of lost and was just trying to find himself again and see what he could do. He gets home and he gets the courage to try to meet up with his birth mother, Betty. And he actually succeeds and gets in touch with her. They end up meeting up and talking about everything, their family, and why this happened, I'm sure, those types of things. And he ended up leaving the visit feeling much worse than he did prior to meeting her. He kind of wanted closure, I think, and with meeting her, he found out some things that I think really, really triggered him. It made him feel, wow, all of the women in my life are like leaving me. This is kind of around the time when he began committing his crimes. He actually had a neighbor that he owned a dog, and this ended up being a dog that was apparently a demon dog. Do with that information what you will. But David claimed that this demon dog that his owner had would continually bark and just drove him mad. He ended up saying that this dog was a demon and instructed him to spill the blood of pretty children, that kind of, or pretty women, that kind of thing. And that is why he committed these crimes. But he ended up confessing that this was actually all part of a ploy to, later on, if he were to get caught, that he would use the whole insanity plea, but it didn't end up working. We'll get there. I've had to cut and stop and splice and all that good stuff like a lot, so I wanted to kind of do a quick recap in case I missed anything. So this man was born on June 1st of 1953, and he was not wanted. Neither of his parents wanted him. He was very much a spoiled brat when he actually did end up getting lucky and adopted. So he went into the Army, came back, met his mom, got pissed, the whole thing. So this was a very lonely, triggered man. He was very, very angry. So he decided to start his crimes off with a knife attack. So these two girls were walking, and they were walking under like an overpass type thing, I think. And the man, David, went up and attacked both girls. Just started stabbing viciously like crazy. Trigger warning, I'm sorry. He went apeshit. So he did that, and one of the gals passed away. The other one ended up surviving. So the very lucky victim that did survive actually didn't end up identifying the man in any way. She couldn't figure out or remember what he looked like, anything like that. So the police had nothing to go on in this case. So it was kind of just a random spur of the moment attack for David. I believe at this point he realized that he did not want to use a knife anymore. His crimes from this point on were committed with guns. One gun in particular, it was a .44 caliber. Going back to course, like I was saying, the cops couldn't figure out who it was yet. Sorry, my neck is hurting. A few months go by and he's kind of laying low. He's like living his life, and he decides like it's time to like go for it again. So he wants to use his gun, and he actually goes for it. He does the damn thing. He does it. The demon dog is telling him he has to do it. The demon dog is telling him to. On July 29th, I believe, 1976, yes, in the Bronx, around 1 a.m., David decides to go on the hunt and try to find his next victim. So he spies Donna and Jody, very vulnerable girls, sitting in their vehicle. I believe it was Jody's vehicle. So they're both sitting there, and they notice this man approaching the vehicle very quickly. Jody kind of turns around and goes, "What the heck? Like, what does he want?" kind of a thing. And before they know it, the last thing they saw was this man pulling this .44 caliber weapon out of this paper bag, shooting them both very, very quickly, and taking off and running away. So, unfortunately, Jody passed away, and Donna did live to tell what she could, at least. All that Donna could describe of the man was that he was about 5'8" to 6 feet, white, Caucasian male with brown hair, brown eyes, lighter skin, just a basic white guy, honestly. And there wasn't much to go off of, but her dad swears that he saw a suspicious man kind of parked and driving around that area in front of the house. So he had an idea that it was that man. And later on, when he got arrested, he was like, "Yeah, that was him. Like, I knew that was David. That was him for sure." Also, one thing to note is it wasn't just a crazy dad who wanted to find someone who hurt his daughter and killed her friend, but there were corroborating reports done by other neighbors, people in the area, that there was this man in a yellow compact vehicle that was kind of out of place in this area. So that was kind of something to note, I thought. So David decides to strike again and goes for a man named Carl and his girlfriend Rosemary. They were hanging out, probably making out, honestly, doing their thing, their kid thing, in Rosemary's car, in her driveway, actually. And out of nowhere, Rosemary says that she heard an explosion and saw her front windshield was just exploded and gone. She then looked over to Carl, and there was a gunshot into his head. The cops came. They were raced to the ER, and Rosemary was fine. She ended up only having superficial wounds, thank God. But Cody had to get a metal plate in his forehead, in his skull, and like the anterior portion. Oh, poor thing. That's just, it's terrible. And so this is when the police started to kind of make this connection. Oh, I'm so tired. So the police started to like make this connection that these couple shootings were kind of like, maybe they're all connected, Police then connected the shell casings from this crime scene to the prior crime scene, and of course, ta-da, they matched. And at this time, I was actually reading, I thought it was kind of odd, but during this time, the gun permit laws, like, it wasn't a thing. You didn't have to have a permit to go buy a gun. You could just go buy a gun, and then no one could really track you in a special way. Like, if I were to go buy a Dorito bag, no one would really know, because everybody's buying Doritos. You know what I mean? That was a dumbass metaphor, but you get what I mean. So the police decided, and not in a mean way, they decided a theory that of young little boys, and it's so cute, like 12-year-olds, 16-year-olds saying, you know, my sisters can't even go out, you know, we're gonna protect them, we're gonna get this guy. It was really bittersweet and heartwarming. But everybody kind of said, you know, we're gonna get this guy. So the cops decided, hopefully, that they could get this man and get some kind of tip, some kind of lead, something like that. But they ended up not getting that tip or lead that was necessary before he struck again. On March 8th, Virginia ended up getting shot as well. So this is her incident. She was walking home and held her textbooks up to her head when she was approached by this man and tried to prevent herself from getting hurt. But the bullet ended up going right through and shot her in the forehead, so she didn't end up making it, unfortunately. Once again, these bullets were connected to be all from the same .44 caliber, so they knew it was this perpetrator. Once again, about a month later, another couple was shot and killed. The woman, Valentina, was shot and I believe killed on site, and her boyfriend ended up getting to the hospital and dying on scene. And they connected all these bullets, and of course they all connected back to this guy again. Same guy, same person. This time it was a little different. There was a letter left at the scene. So I'll go ahead and insert this letter here so you can see, and then I'll read it to you really quick. It's really, really freaky. Like, if you figure out that he's just playing this game of like, I'm gonna act like I'm nuts, I'm gonna act like I'm crazy, it kind of works. But he was not nuts. He was not crazy. He just wanted to make it look like it. This is the letter where he decided to let everybody know that he did not like the name that it was called in the media. I believe he was called the .44 caliber killer or .44 caliber murderer. And he wrote in this letter that he would rather go by Son of Sam. So everybody was freaking out. Like, everybody in this area was going nuts, petrified of this guy, scared that he was gonna strike them next, you know. The next victims ended up being in Bayside, Queens, where he shot both of them, but they both ended up surviving. And he actually, what do you call it? They both could not tell who this person was, who shot them. They weren't sure who did it. They couldn't identify this man, even if they had a lineup, even if they had pictures. They weren't sure, but the police were super, super nervous because the 1-year anniversary was approaching. And of course, David Berkowitz, Son of Sam, did strike again. Most of David's attacks were in the Queens. They were in Queens and the Bronx, so he kind of wanted to throw the cops off when he went for his, like, 1-year anniversary, you know, shooting spree. Not spree, but attack. So he went ahead and went to Brooklyn instead. He ended up seeing a vulnerable couple and went in and shot at them. Unfortunately, the man, Robert, got shot in the eye and was blinded and lost his eyeball. And Stacy, his girlfriend, or girl he was going on a date with, actually, ended up passing away. So that was really unfortunate. He remembers being in the park, and they kind of wanted to just go out on a summer night and be kids again and go on the swings and hang out. And he kind of noticed this man who was kind of watching them in the park when they were, you know, being kids hanging out. So they end up going back to the car, and the man kind of disappeared. So Robert just said, oh, whatever, kind of brushed it off. But he does believe that that was David Berkowitz, who was kind of stalking his prey and waiting for them to be in a vulnerable spot in the vehicle. So he ended up shooting them and, of course, harming Robert and killing Stacy. Earlier that same day, there was a woman who was in the same area. She ended up, was kind of walking home, and this man walked up to her and approached her and tried to shoot her, but the shots were fired and missed her. So she was very fortunate. And then, the news came on later that day of the shooting of Stacy and Robert, and she was like dead set that was him. So she came forward to the police. The thing though with the murder of Stacy is that her and Robert were together, right? But Stacy was blonde, so this was his last and final victim before he was caught. And she was blonde, so the cops thought that was kind of weird, but luckily later on they ended up catching him, because there was a woman who thought that he was a little strange and took note of him and noticed his what do you call it? He had a parking ticket on his car, so she took note of the car and the license plate. So the cops, of course, were able to get to David and found his address, of course, from the license plate, registration, all that. You get it. You're an adult. So they end up going to his house, and instead of just busting in, they go ahead and look in his vehicle, and they see a shotgun, and they get a warrant for that, to search his house. So they end up, while they're waiting for this warrant, going ahead and searching the car. When they looked through the car, they found a duffel bag with maps of all of the murders and killings and all that good stuff. And then after that, it was the letter that he had written to the Omega Task Force, head honcho, this police officer, this man who was in charge of the task force to find and get him. He had a letter written to him in that same handwriting, so they knew it was him. So then they wait. They don't want to go up to his house, so they wait for him to leave. So he finally ends up leaving around 10 p.m. They approach him, and the detectives kind of sneak up on him and put a pistol to his head. He turns around and says, "Well, you got me." So they take him in. They take him to the police station, and it took them all of but 30 minutes or so to get his confession out of him. And he, of course, pulled the whole demon dog, made me do it thing. Like, literally, like, document my homework, excuse type thing, but adult murder version. Ends up getting 25 years to life per murder. So he's in there for life, and he'll keep trying to get his parole if he can, but we don't think he ever will. And he has now turned his life around and is a Christian, so good for him, I guess. And he, he pulls the whole Shane Dawson thing, like, that's not me anymore, type thing. And I don't even know who that was. Bullshit. So that is all for the Son of Sam. This man is literally crazy. He's a psychopath. But